In the 1990s, the World Rally Championship was the biggest world stage for showing what your production cars were truly capable of. Subaru, now known almost entirely from this rallying success, was doing well with their mid-size legacy model. But smaller, more nimble cars began to make it a bit more difficult to win, so Subaru needed a replacement. Designed with rallying in mind, the Impreza was born, and thanks to the folks at Subaru Technica International, this small 1.6 front-wheel drive commuter car became a 2-litre turbocharged 4-wheel drive monster, winning events and championships the world over. So, before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty, let's get into the basics. To begin, this is all within the first generation of Impreza. The second generation was introduced in 2000 with what's affectionately, I think, known as the bug-eye. The first generation is known as the GC generation. There are many variations of it, with GMs and GFs and so on, and I know Subaru nerds will be saying there's far more to it, but for the purpose of this beginner's guide, I'll be referring to them all as GC8s. Think of how you would say R32 or R33 to denote Skylines, or Mark 1 and Mark 2 to denote Golfs. This is effectively a Mark 1 Impreza. Secondly, you're going to be hearing a lot of letters as we go forward. There are two sets that are recurring through them all: WRX and STI. WRX stands for World Rally Cross or World Rally Experimental, depending on who you ask. And WRX is essentially a trim level of the standard Impreza. We had something similar in the UK at the time, the Turbo 2000, but this wasn't the homologation special that the WRX was. All of the cars we'll be talking about here are Impreza WRXs, just in varying levels. Later on in the Impreza's life, WRX would become its own model, but that's not for today. The next set of characters there were STI. This means Subaru's tuning division, Subaru Technica International, got their mitts on it. Similar to AMG for Mercedes, for example. While some think these versions only apply to STIs, realistically, it's a good rule of thumb for all Impreza models to get a rough idea of what year you're talking about. I do wish they had picked a better acronym than STI, but here we are. Got it? Good. Let's get started. The lineage begins in 1992 with the version 1. Presumably it wasn't called that until the version 2 came out, kinda like how they didn't say World War 1 until its sequel came out. This one had a point to prove, that the new, smaller Subaru was fit to tackle the world stage. With a big, super-esque wing and commonly seen without fog light covers, the version 1 STI was introduced in late '93. Initially sporting 247 horsepower, it was increased to 256 by the end of that year. Before the next version, Subaru would introduce the version 1's final form, the Type RA, standing for whatever you want it seems. Usually it's deemed to be record attempt or rally application. This was a stripped out model with only the bare necessities, so no radio, AC or any of that stuff. If you wanted to build a rally car or wanted pure performance, this was your choice. It's kinda like the RS models of the Evo that came on steel wheels. The version 2 of the WRX STI came in mid-1995 and was a very big deal, to me personally anyway, because Subaru were mad enough to extend the range to include the wagons. So those who wanted to go fast with a family, or in my case a bootload of stuff, now was your time to shine. The version 2 went with a low-rise spoiler, which would be commonplace for the next couple of versions, alongside a set of fog light covers that would see STI models until well into the 2000s. I always thought it was weird that the sporty models had no fog lights, when usually they're considered a sporty option, but there we go. This was also when Subaru would commemorate their WRC win with a special edition 555 Impreza in the iconic blue and gold of the rally car that took Colin McRae to his championship win. Power had a minor increase to 263 horsepower, while much else remained the same. The version 3 Impreza came along in 1996 and is where things started to get really interesting. Power was up to that famed 276 horsepower, a result of the gentleman's agreement in Japan where the manufacturers promised to cap all cars at 276 horsepower, lest things get out of control, but in reality most of the cars all made more anyway. The opposite of going is stopping, and a big change came in the form of 4-pot brakes. As well as that, we got the iconic intercooler spray, a button on the dash allowing you to spray cool water onto the top mounted intercooler, supposedly giving you a small power boost. While I doubt it really did much, it's one of the all-time coolest features. A minor facelift occurred, sharpening the edges of the headlights, giving the front a whole new look. These headlights would go on to be used until the end of the GC8. As well as this, we also got the Coupe STI for the first time, a 2-door. Like the 555, it was to celebrate the victory at the WRC. But if you ask me, given that the WRC car came out the next year based on what people think the 22B, I'm guessing that it was actually more of a homologation thing. Because remember, the 22B was not a homologation car, it was a celebration car. Okay, we're halfway through the generations. Getting bombarded with numbers and figures? Good, here's some more. Just kidding. But let's take a quick look at the beating heart of these amazing cars, the EJ series boxer engine. Subaru have almost always been known for their boxer engines. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru. The Boxer is a very unique case, with realistically only Subaru and Porsche, although they're a flat for a long story, competing them throughout the years. They're called a boxer engine because instead of the pistons going up and down like a conventional engine, they go from side to side, like a boxer would swinging punches. Introduced around the time that David Hasselhoff took down the big wall, the EJ series of boxer engines became the backbone of the Subaru lineup, available in about every configuration imaginable, from 120 horsepower NA variants to well over 300 horsepower in hyped up STI versions, from turbos to twin turbos to no turbo at all. There are so many different variants it would be a video unto itself, and people have done it, so I won't bother my whole. But they all carry that same distinct sound, and as an owner of many different types of engines over the years, these are honestly some of the smoothest running I've ever experienced. And again, who can forget that noise thanks to the uneven headers? The EJ was made from 89 all the way up to 2019, with the final edition getting just 555 units. I wonder why. I mean, who would have thought that a cigarette company would run so deep? Now, they aren't without issues, don't get me wrong. Head gaskets can go, rocket cover seals are temperamental, maintenance can be a bit awkward sometimes, but if actually looked after, EJs regularly see hundreds of thousands of miles. Unfortunately, long after the body is rotted away, because at that point, they're usually swapped into a classic Volkswagen. There's a reason they made them for so long, and the best part is, nearly any era of EJ is easily swappable into these earlier cars. Okay, back to business, and the version 4 was business as usual. Much the same as the version 3, one of the only real differences was that the rev counter was moved to the centre of the gauge cluster, which, I know, isn't exactly groundbreaking, but it was one of the defining features of a sporty Impreza versus a base model. However, what 1998 would bring was something a bit more special. That 22B we were talking about. The 22B has been talked about so many times over the years I don't need to reiterate it here. But here's one cool fact seldom talked about outside of Subaru nerds. The 22B came out around the changeover of the version 4 to the version 5, and while the bumper looks a bit more akin to the version 5, the indicators are still from the version 4. There's also a sport version of this front bumper that was available for your non-22B car. It mimicked the style of the 22B bumper, however, it was slightly more narrow, a necessity really given the width of the 22B compared to a regular WRX. Right, that's enough of version 4, let's move on to version 5. The version 5 was the second last evolution, sorry to use that word, Subaru guys, of the original Impreza, and it came with a total aesthetic change to the front end. For a lot of people, when they think of an Impreza outside of the 22B, this is the one they think of. Along with the front end, the spoiler was tweaked too, along with the side skirts, but the biggest change again was in the stopping department. In the late 90s, ABS was kind of becoming mainstream, but Subaru developed a sports ABS to help you go back to 0 just as quickly as you got to 60. And lastly, we get to version 6, the last of the breed, the final evolution. As per the gentleman's agreement, power stayed at 276 horsepower, but this model was a culmination of everything Subaru had learned both on and off the world stage, and is considered by many to be the ultimate form of Impreza. Now I may be biased, but it also introduced us to Cashmere Yellow, previously only seen on legacy models. There were other yellows, yes, like Blaze Yellow and so on, but they weren't Cashmere. The last bit of aerodynamic fettling came here too, with the spoiler redesigned yet again and a new lip spoiler on the front. Alas, the version 6 is where this generation of Impreza would come to an end, and they moved on to the Bug Eye, which then became the Blob Eye and the Hawk Eye.
Thank you so much for watching. I've been Tomo, this is 427 Motorsports, see you in the next one.